Hello, dear friends. I hope and pray that you are all doing well and that you got through the storms of Thursday in good shape. I haven't heard anything to the contrary, so I think everybody did okay. And I hope you're looking forward to some more the pretty weather that's always comes after the storm clears its way out, and as we look toward excitement of spring. Well, friends, we started a series just a little while back called Knowing Jesus, and the idea is to develop a more intimate relationship with our Lord. And we have talked about some elements of His character. Today we're going to look at three of those elements, but we want to do so with a little different perspective as we approach these today. So I'll tell you about that as we go along. Have you ever wondered what God looks like? I think we all have, right? We've all kind of wondered what God looks like. What does He look like in your mind's eye? What do you see? Do you see a white, bearded old man that's got this stern look? Do you see Mr. Rogers? You know, they asked a bunch of kids, what does Jesus look like? And a bunch of them said, Mr. Rogers. If I could have, I would have gotten my red cardigan. I don't have a red cardigan. I would have had on my little red cardigan and said, does this look like Jesus to you? You know, Mr. Rogers. Great guy, great show for kids especially. But what do you think of? Do you think of some gargantuan cosmic conglomeration being that is just all powerful over everything? Do you think of a multi-headed dragon? Do you think of a father figure? Do you think of some terrifying, unspeakable being? What do you think of when you think of what God looks like? Well, today we're going to look a little bit at what it looks like to see God, because Jesus tells us we can. I've got good news. I can tell you what He looks like. Well, a little bit of what He looks like anyway. I can tell you that because in John chapter 14 it says, anyone who has seen me, this is Jesus speaking, has seen the Father. And He's talking to His disciples when He tells them that. John chapter 1 verse 18 says, no one has ever seen God but the one and only Son, who is Himself God and who is in closest relationship with the Father and has made Him known. So we can see some elements of what God looks like. We can get a glimpse of God, if you will. And we do that by looking at Jesus. And so as we continue in our study of intimacy with Christ, we're going to look a little bit more at what God looks like. Well, today we're going to look at three aspects of the characteristics of what makes Jesus who He is. And this is just three. There's a myriad of them. But I want to look at these three critical characteristics of God that makes that Jesus made known to us very clearly and helps us to see what God looks like. Now, some of these, first one especially, you're going to say, oh, ho-hum, this is Sunday school stuff. Well, bear with me. I want us to look at the first two kind of quickly because we're going to focus on the third one. And the third one, I believe, will set you free in some things in your Christian walk like nothing you've ever experienced if you will allow it to. The first of these we're going to look at is love. Okay, we all know God is love. 1 John chapter 4, you probably learned the little song when you were a kid, verse 7 and 8 and so forth. Well, in John chapter 4, verse 8, it says, whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed His love among us. He sent His one and only Son into the world that we might live through Him. Now, friends, God embodies the very nature of unconditional love. All those things that you see in 1 Corinthians 13, you know, love is patient, love is kind, love is. All those things embody that unconditional love that Jesus and that God exemplified. It's from His nature of love that we can experience mercy and grace. And without that love, we would be in very, very bad shape, because the grace of God is poured out to us through His love. Jesus fleshed out love in everything He did. He did what He did because of love. His actions and activities arose out of His love. Now, I want you to think about someone for me. Think about someone that you love dearly. Think about a spouse, maybe, or a parent, or a child, or a friend. What would you do for them? Is there anything you wouldn't do for them? What if they turned on you? How much would your love be affected? We all know people who get married and they love each other and their love is just exemplary. They seem to just click and they just do so well, and all of a sudden you hear they're getting divorced. Marriages dissolve every day. Parent-child relationships are broken. I have 2 kids that haven't spoken to me in years, and I've made efforts as best I know how, but nothing's come back together yet. I believe that and hope that someday it will, but it's heartbreaking, and it happens in every family I know has some issues of brokenness within that family, some broken relationships. Sibling relationships dissolve too. Siblings who grew up just like a house full of puppies, that's just loving and nurturing each other all the time. They clash. They get older and something happens and there's a disagreement, and all of a sudden that relationship breaks down. And you've seen that happen as well as I have. Deep friendships are destroyed. I have a fellow who was the closest friend I had for years and years. I told him several times. He told me we're best friends. Very, very best friends. Something happened and between us, and I had part responsibility and he did. And I went to him and I said, I accept my responsibility for this breach in our friendship, and I want to apologize, and I hope you'll forgive me. And we spent about an hour talking one day, and the culmination of that was he said, well, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take my keys and go get my car and leave, and you take your keys and go get your car and leave, and that'll be the end of our friendship. And I've never spoken to him since. And I've wanted to, but that relationship is broken. And it was a best friend relationship. So all these relationships can break down. And usually because of some form of a wounding. Friends, Jesus is love. He loves us unconditionally. And you know what? We turned against him. We still do. We tell him to leave us alone. We curse him. We chase idols. We find little things that we like better than having to spend time with Jesus. We deny him. We exclude him. You ever been out with some friends and you'd love to be able to let them know about your relationship with Christ, but you're not going to do that because it might mess your friendship up, or you don't want to get into any of that kind of heavy talk with them, or maybe you're a little embarrassed about that relationship. That's the kind of things we do to Jesus. We usually will do whatever it is to help our cause. And sometimes that means kind of ignoring Jesus and ignoring Jesus in our lives. Yet, his love for us has never wavered. It has never been compromised. He doesn't allow it to be. In fact, I love the statement, you cannot do anything that would make Jesus love you more. And you cannot do anything that would make him love you less. And I cannot either. And that makes me feel good to know that no matter what, no matter how much I act on my own behalf, Jesus still acts on my behalf because of his great love. The first characteristic we're going to look at today, we just brought out the points of those, is that Jesus is love and God is love. And the God that we know who created everything is love. Now, as a young Christian, been a Christian about a year, I was asked, I came to Christ through a ministry called Young Life. I was asked by the Young Life leader to go with him down to Aberdeen, North Carolina to speak at a little retreat. And, it was time for us to get away and spend some time together, and me to be there to kind of support him and pray for him. So we did. And I met a guy there who was in the high school youth group. I was in my first year of college, and I was actually working with Young Life on the side myself. And so he and I sort of struck up a friendship. He was in high school. And the next year, he moved to Greensboro, where I was living, and had gotten married. And he came to go to UNCG. And we kind of renewed that little friendship. And after spending some time together, I think we were maybe hunting together a little bit and working out in a little gym across the street from my house together and some stuff like that. We kind of decided that we should do a Bible study and we should grow in our faith together. And turned out, seemed like to be a good thing to do. So we started a Bible study. And that first Bible study was called the I Ams, the 7 I Ams of John. And it's Jesus saying, I am certain things. Now, you may remember that the Pharisees got really upset with him when he used the term I am, because it meant he was God. Well, these I ams are supporting that whole concept. that Jesus is God. Let me tell you what they are. Jesus said, I am the bread of life in John chapter 6. He said, I am the light of the world in John chapter 8. He said, I am the gate or the door, the entrance into eternity, basically, in John chapter 10. He said, I am the good shepherd in John chapter 10. In John chapter 11, he says, I am the resurrection and the life. In John chapter 14, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. We're going to focus on truth here just a second. And in John chapter 15, the seventh of the I ams, he says, I am the true vine, and you are the branches. And we're going to look at that one a little bit too in a few minutes. But Jesus said unequivocally that I am the truth. Now, my friend Chris and I both shared a desire to grow in our faith. And we saw in this study a great source of growth. And interestingly, I talked to him today for the first time in over 20 years probably, or at least almost that many. And found out that just like me, he's always had a love for men's ministry. And I think he and I cultivated that together, that first year of our real close walk with the Lord. And we both have kept a vision for that. And I learned today that his family is doing great. His kids love the Lord. They're married to spouses who love the Lord. And you just rejoice when you hear of God doing that. And his walk with the Lord and his beautiful wife, they're just as strong as ever. And you love to see and hear about people who've done that. It's because of things like this, friend. It's things like this, getting to know God better, making intimacy with Christ a priority that helps us to keep on our path of growth. And I hope that you're tracking along with this and growing in your walk with the Lord. But let's talk about truth. Jesus said in the sixth of the I ams, I am the way, the truth, and the life. In John chapter 14, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. When Jesus said that he was the truth, he wasn't saying that he was the truth as opposed to falsehood or as opposed to untruth. He said that he holds everything together in an aspect of truth, of all of life. Let me give you some examples. Truth pertains to everything we experience in life. Our universe works because God's truth. Our gravity works because of truth. Our bodies work because of his truth. Science and math work because of truth. Emotions work because of truth. Love works because of truth. Anger and fear happen because of truth. Forgiveness works because of truth. Now, a couple of my favorite authors, or one of them in particular, Philip Yancey, co-authored a book with a guy named Dr. Paul Brand. I believe the title was Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. And they're talking about the perfection of God's creation, that it's fearfully and wonderfully made. Let me give you some things they bring out in this. A hummingbird, you've probably seen them. You know, they come to those little bird feeders. They're about this big. Their wings beat at 100,000 times a second. You know, they're just incredible to watch. And they fly like this. Did you know that hummingbirds migrate to South America every year? That they fly down to Florida and then they leave from Florida to South America over water, sometimes through storms and hurricanes, the kinds of things that sink ships. These tiny little hummingbirds, oftentimes in huge flights of them together, fly all the way to South America where they winter. Now, to me, that's pretty incredible in and of itself. The hummingbird has a heart in it that weighs less than a half an ounce. That little heart beats 800 times a minute. Now, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? A blue whale has a heart that weighs half a ton. It beats 10 times a minute and can be heard up to 2 miles away. A human heart, friends, the one that's in you and me, beats over 100,000 times a day with no rest for 70, 80, 90 years, sometimes 100. That muscle in there does that. You know why? Because Jesus is truth. Because God is truth. And God's incredible creativity is truth. It's perfect. It works. It works exactly as he designed it. He is what is called an intelligent designer. And he created all of these things that make our lives what they are out of his incomparable great truth. Why? Because Jesus, our Creator, is truth. And his truth, friends, is perfect. Now, I'm wanting to use these two as we delve into this study today in intimacy with God and getting to know Christ better. I want to use these two things. Love, Jesus' perfect love, God's perfect love for people like you and me who turn against him, who deny him, who run away from him, who don't want to be what he wants us to be. I want to use that one, and truth, the fact that everything in our universe holds together because of God's perfect truth. I want us to use those as a stepping stone, if you will, as a jumping off point as we look at the third of these characteristics of Jesus today. And this is the life. Remember, Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. And then he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. In John chapter 1, the very first chapter of John, the one who was very close, the disciple who was very close, he called himself the disciple that Jesus loved, who is writing, and he says in the very earliest, he says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He's talking about Jesus, and he tells us that he's talking about Jesus. And then in verse 4 he says, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. Friends, Christ dramatically exemplified life. Everything is to be, and nothing it shouldn't be. Everything that life is to be is exemplified in Jesus Christ. Nothing that it shouldn't be is left out if you look at the life of Christ. It's all about what life is supposed to be about. It's his life. More importantly, he shows us how to live it. And it's not what we tend to think and flesh out, which we tend to think is living by a set of rules. That's what we've kind of been ingrained. We're supposed to be living a good Christian life, kind of by a set of rules. You know, when I was a young Christian, we used to say, you know, a Christian is someone who doesn't smoke, drink, or chew, or run around with girls that do. And there were these rules, and that was what we were kind of given as growing up, as this is what the Christian life is supposed to be about. Friends, I want to give you a key today from this study in intimacy with Christ. I want to give you a key to unlock any form of restraint, any form of imprisonment that you have allowed teaching or the church in general or Christianity and your concept of Christianity to place on you, to lock you in. I want to give you a key to help you find a true freedom of being what it means to be all that God wants you to be. And that is that Jesus is the life, and his life is the light of all mankind. God never intended for us to have these rules, to live under these rules. He didn't design them for that. And even though Jesus was the co-author of these rules, he did this as a means to show us the standard by which he only could live, Jesus Christ, and God's standard, so that we would see the depth of what he did to demonstrate to you and me his perfect love and his perfect life. As one author has said, and I love this statement, friends, few things can mess you up as badly as trying to do your best. Let me say that one again. As one Christian author has said, few things can mess you up as badly as trying to do your best. Some of you may remember back in the late 90s, there was a thing going around and people wore these little bracelets forever. It said WWJD. What would Jesus do? Friends, I got news for you. You can't do it. You can't do what Jesus would do. Oh, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can do that. I can overcome this area in my life. I can. All right, let's do it. Let's do that. I want you to think with me. What's something that's an area of your Christian life that you want to get rid of? Maybe it's gossip. Maybe it's overeating. Maybe it's lying. Some sort of addiction. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's selfishness. Let's make a commitment. You make a commitment right now. I'll make it with you. I am gonna overcome that. I'm not gonna do that anymore. You won't make it to the weekend, friend. I promise you. You do that in your strength and you will not make it to the weekend. And Jesus doesn't even think you can either. I'm going to show you why. Because he's the life. Jesus said, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. And apart from me, you can do nothing. You know, friends, what we've been told is you have to try to live a Christian life. You just have to try a little harder. Try harder. You know what the result of that is? You feel worse because you didn't do it. You didn't make it. You failed once again. I can't tell you how many times I've prayed, God, here I am again. Once again, I've messed it up. Once again, I've done it wrong. Here I am again. Jesus, he knows. He knows that's where you're going to be. That's where it's going to end up. Because he knows you and I can't do it. And he doesn't even intend for us to, even though we've been fed a pack of lies that says that's what you're supposed to do. One Christian author says, the blossom of your humanity is the life of Jesus in you. Jesus has no intention of letting you become whole apart from his moment-to-moment presence and life within you. Jesus is the life, and it's the light of man. Let me say that one again. Jesus has no intention of letting you become whole apart from his moment-to-moment presence and life within you. That's John Eldridge. Oswald Chambers said, our only task is to maintain a vital connection with Jesus Christ, seeing that nothing interferes with it. Our only task to grow as God's people, to grow as God's children, is to maintain a vital connection with Jesus Christ and see that nothing interferes with it. My friends, the only way to fix our brokenness is not trying to do better, but realizing our total dependence on Jesus to live his life in us. I am the vine, John 15, verse 5, and you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Because apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from me, you will fail at every one of those commitments you make to do better. What did the author say? Nothing can mess us up more than trying to do better. Friends, stop trying to do better. Experience the freedom of having Jesus' life in you. Let Jesus live out his life in you. Maintain that vital connection with Jesus Christ, seeing that nothing interferes with it. Make sure you're living with Jesus in you, and you won't have to worry about trying to fix your problems. Jesus takes care of it. Because apart from him, you and I can do nothing. This is heavy stuff, and I don't want to belabor it, but I want to set us free. I want to set me free. I want to set you free. I want you to hear these things again. Let's look at some applications from these three characteristics of Jesus. Love Jesus. Bask in his love for you. You have never broken his heart. You have never broken his heart. But he has wept for the sin that has wounded you. When Jesus saw Lazarus in the grave, he wept. It's the shortest verse of the Bible. He wept. He wept because the sin that put Lazarus in that grave. Not Lazarus' sin, but the sin of mankind. Jesus weeps for the sin that makes us like we are sometimes. But he's never wept because you've broken his heart. He has loved you and loves you just as much as if you didn't do it, and just as much as if you never did it again. Secondly, rejoice in his truth. Everything good and perfect and wonderful comes from his gracious hands. Everything in all of creation comes from his gracious hands. He is the truth. The third, stop trying to live a righteous life and allow the one who is the life to live in you. Get out of the way and trust him by faith to live in you. And when you see yourself trying to take over again, back off and give him the controls. Turn the wheel back over to him. Let him drive that car of your life. Jesus, take the wheel. Here's a prayer for you. Jesus, I give you my life. Today, help me to live with you, living out your life in me. Jesus, live your life in me today. Just that simple. Just that prayer. Jesus, live your life in me today. Let's pray. Jesus, live your life in us today. Amen.